Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we are going to check in on my reading for July and set up my journal for August. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, y'all, when last we met, we had set up my July pages. Our Poe pick for July was Murders in the Rue Morgue. I have put a few more notes here than I have maybe on some of our others, and I'm going to fill in my little star rating here. I am going to give this a solid 4 stars. We still have some, issues with Poe and misogyny, like the fact that why it gotta be a woman and her daughter who dies. It's always the woman. Anyway, but we had read The Man of the Crowd in April, and this definitely has far more elements of what we now know of as a traditional detective story than The Man of the Crowd did. It reads that way. I'm listening to a specific Audible version that I will stick up here for you if you want to. It's got most of Poe in it. I've picked it up to help me along. That person reads it with a French accent, so it really had almost those Agatha Christie Poirot vibes in reading this story, because Poe introduces us to C. Auguste Dupin, who is a detective that appears in 3 of his stories. And so in this one, this mother and her daughter are murdered and they can't figure out, they don't have that many visitors, who got in, how has this been done? And of course he uses his analytical and deductive skills to figure out that they had a pet orangutan who has murdered them and escaped. But definitely more of the detective vibes than anything else that we have read from Poe this far. And so that's where we are with Murders in the Rue Morgue. How did my reading go? Y'all know I've had a really hard time reading physical books. So I was in the middle of Sanderson's Way of Kings, and I just had to give it a break. I just had to take a break. And then Encyclopedia Fairies, I've just kind of put on the shelf until I'm ready to go back to it. I have a plan to break me of my physical reading slump. So in the meantime, I listened to An Unquiet Mind, which is a memoir by K. Redfield Jemison about bipolar disorder. And it's one of those books, if you're new here, I live with bipolar disorder. It's one of those books that I have put off reading because I thought it would be triggering, and it was. And then for the rest of the month, I really just kind of took solace in Jane Austen. That's where I went. My brain just needed a break, and we went back to Jane because I found, a different version and decided that that's what I was going to listen to. So here is my spread for An Unquiet Mind. The difference here is that I didn't just put quotes on this side and then my thoughts on this side. I literally just kept writing down quotes. I even have some in a note on my phone because I resonated so very much with almost every word that this woman wrote. The difference there being is she was much more in a place of privilege to get treated with her bipolar disorder because her father had been mentally ill. She'd always been interested in the mind and was pursuing her own PhD to become a doctor for mental illness when she was herself diagnosed as also having this disorder. And it is just very real and it is very raw. The first quote I wrote down still haunts me because it's something I've struggled with every single day of my life since I was diagnosed. And it's that I compare myself with my former self, not with others. Not only that I tend to compare my current self with the best I have been, which is when I have been mildly manic. When I am my present normal self, I am far removed from when I have been my liveliest, most productive, most intense, most outgoing, and effervescent. In short, for myself, I am a hard act to follow. So I've been unpacking some of this with my therapist because naturally that's where I'm gonna go to when something like this is triggering, or like this quote that says, I had a horrible sense of loss for who I had been and where I had been. There's a lot to it. If you struggle with bipolar disorder, I do think it's a must read, but I think it's a must read on your own terms. I think had I read this when I was first diagnosed and this came out the year before my diagnosis or the year of my diagnosis, so I wouldn't have really had access to it. It wouldn't have been on my radar. I doubt it would have even been on my psychologist's radar at that point in time, or my psychiatrist's radar at that point in time. So it took a while for it to get onto my radar, and then I've just kind of put it off. I am now glad I read it. it is definitely a 5-star read for me. I'm trying to get family to read it. Maybe they'll understand me a little bit more. Maybe they won't. That was sort of the big read for me, and it's a short book, but there was just a lot for me to digest in that particular book. And then I needed some solace. I needed to take a move into something easier. And so I launched into the Jane Austen collection Audible original. At the time that I downloaded it, it was, as long as you're an Audible member, it was free. It didn't take a credit for me to use to get the whole pack. Again, I'll put the cover art for it over here so that you can see what that looks like. Beautiful narrators. We've got Florence Pugh, Claire Foy, Billie Piper. Emma Thompson narrates 2 of them. In July, I made it all the way through Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Mansfield Park in that order. I didn't listen to them in the order that they came on the recording. And I am most of the way through Emma here, a couple of days into August. This probably won't go up till mid-August, but a couple of days into August into Emma, and then Northanger Abbey, and we'll have blown through the whole thing. And I don't know where we'll go from there. I have thoughts. So honestly, that's it. That's it. We have got An Unquiet Mind. We have got Jane Austen, and I'm going to put some notes on here about the narration. They are dramatized versions, which were far more fun. I've listened to narrations of Jane Austen before. I have read through all 6 of them multiple times before. It's just a comfort zone. It's like going back and watching Gilmore Girls for the 100th time, right? Like, it's just one of those places that is a comfort zone for me. In addition to that, though, I am reading How to Take Smart Notes, which is the book club book in Bujo U, the Bullet Journal University, which I'm a part of. I signed up for a free month in July and have found it to just be a very valuable resource for me and what I need for my bullet journal, and sharing ideas with community members who have been using the method for years beyond our art styling and all of that sort of thing. And so I'm just enjoying that. And I'll probably come back to both of these pretty soon, but let us go ahead and set up for August, since we are already in August. And I have misplaced my washi tape again. I keep losing this washi tape. So I am just going to go with black. So tell me down in the comments below what you thought of Murders in the Rue Morgue. I am going to be announcing the rest of the months of my Poe read on the community tab. So if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing so that you know when those go up. I was feeling a little pressured to get my reading wrap up, right at the end of the month or right at the beginning of the month. And that kind of pressure is just not what I need to be putting on myself right now. So I did announce that our August read is The Pit and the Pendulum over on my community tab. So that's where I will announce September through December as well, and then get my reading wrap up when I get my reading wrap up. That's just how that is going to work. Takes a little bit of pressure off me, still tells y'all which short story we are reading next and how we are approaching Poe. Now, I chose The Pit and the Pendulum because it is my gateway drug to Edgar Allan Poe. I believe I've told this story before, but I had a 6th grade teacher who read it aloud to us in class. He read it aloud in a very conservative missionary Christian school in Africa. Some of my classmates were quite disturbed, went home, talked to their parents. My mother was the school librarian. Their parents talked to my mother about what he was reading to us, and she refused to engage because she's a librarian and believes in free speech and all of those things, regardless of how conservative she was. I've just always appreciated that bit of the story, but it was definitively my gateway drug. I mean, I just fell in love with Poe during this whole phenomenon of being told this story in class or read aloud this story in class. And so it sticks with me as one of my favorites. It's been a while since I read it, so we'll see if I feel like it's measuring up to some of the others that we have read, if it still sort of holds that kind of a place in my heart. I bet it will. And if you've already read it, feel free to sound off down below. You don't have to wait until my August reading wrap up to share your thoughts. You can certainly go ahead and share those thoughts here and let me know. I haven't gotten to it yet. In fact, I had to do Murders at the Rue Morgue twice because I listened to it and then so much time went by in the month that I was like, what? Wait, what happened there? It's been that kind of month, y'all. So, Pit in the Pendulum, as usual, it's a horror. It's a short story. It is fiction. Thank goodness, right? All right. It was published in 1903, and the word count is 6,260 words. And then I will write my thoughts about it here, and I need to find my cover. Okay, here we go. I had forgotten to pull it out of my back pocket back there, and I have so many pre-printed book covers back there. I've printed book covers for books that I've hauled this year, and then I haven't read the books that I've hauled, so they're all stuck back there. So there's the Pit and the Pendulum, and when we get ready, I will give it some stars. I'm gonna make the stars red this time. And then I also need to put in my little reading tracker, considering I'm 3 or 4 days into the month already. All right, and then reading this month, I like this red Pigmamicron, but it's a 0.01. It's very fine. I think that's pretty generous. Although if I go on another binge of something like I did Jane Austen and it's all on audio, maybe I can read that much. So where are we? So right now I am reading Emma, and we're just gonna go ahead and put Northanger Abbey on here because it's gonna happen. And then I am still reading How to Take Smart Notes, going through that at the pace that the book club for Bujo U is. And I am doing that on an e-reader. I've decided I want to try to do some of my nonfiction or personal development on e-reader so that I can highlight a little more easily. Those can digitally connect to my Notion so I can keep those notes, that sort of a thing. And then I am going to hold off on adding The Way of Kings or Encyclopedia of Fairies on here until I really feel like maybe I'm going to get them read. Here is my plan for breaking my physical book dry spell. Comes in the way of a haul. Novellas. So I love Alex E. Harrow, and of course I have only read 10,000 Doors of January and Once in Future Witches, but I just love the way she writes, and I'm not normally a big flowery purple prose type of person, but I love the way she spins a tale and puts words together. So Spindle Splintered is of course her take on Sleeping Beauty. It is a girl with a chronic illness that sort of falls through the rabbit hole essentially, and finds out that she is a version of Sleeping Beauty. And so I have started this. There's a couple of flags in here. I've started making a character list. This is a post-it note that I write on with a permanent marker. And so I've started this. Shouldn't take me too long to read it. Again, novella. And then the second one in the same series, this one's about the Wicked Witch from Snow White. And then T. Kingfisher's What Moves the Dead, which connects to our Poe reading. What Moves the Dead being a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher. I do have the Fall of the House of Usher on my list. Am I going to wait until I read it before I do What Moves the Dead? To be decided. And then I went ahead and picked up, and I've already let somebody borrow it, so I'm going to show you another book for visual purposes. But I come from the generation that grew up with The Last Unicorn. Peter S. Beagle has released a follow-up book that is 2 short stories, so 2 novellas behind The Last Unicorn. It came out in April. I will put a picture of it over here as well, but I've already let somebody borrow it. So hopefully I'll get it back and I can add it to my short story or novella stack, and hopefully my novella stack can help break me out of my physical book reading slump. Not that I don't think reading with your ears or on an e-reader is not reading. It is, but I've really been stuck in that slump and I can't get out of it. So that's where we are with August setup. I have been keeping up, I think, pretty well back here. Yeah, there's Mansfield Park, so I put in my Jane Austens. Here I am getting a little tight on the P's. I think somebody actually predicted that P, S, and T were sort of those, and A even maybe, were those letters that I was going to get a little tight on. It's fine. We'll just roll into the Q's. Nobody will mind. And then this, I'm pretty sure, is caught up. I've got to decide if I'm going to count the novellas as a full-blown book. I probably will. Read 365. See, I'm here a couple of days into August already. And then, let's see, my release radar. I have added a lot to this, I guess. Fragile Threads of Power, V.E. Schwab's follow-up to Shades of Magic is coming out, so I will probably be picking that up. The ones that are read I already pre-ordered, so I do have Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman. I have not yet read it. I've also pre-ordered Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal, because I like Ali Abdaal. I think he's a pretty neat guy. I haven't had any traction here on my physical backlist. So the ones that are colored in red, I read earlier in the year. I'm thinking about starting the audiobook for Theft of Swords, even though I have the physical book. So we'll see. Stand by. Maybe we'll get to that one. But Writing Retreat. This is my FOMO list. Haven't added anything to this. My POPIX. Here is Pit and the Pendulum. My haul is, I've added things to my haul. So The Way Home is the name of the follow-up to The Last Unicorn. My haul's getting full. I skipped Book of the Month for August again. And then series. I added some things to my series tracker. And haven't DNF'd anything else. I did add an Unquiet Mind to my faves. So while I've had other 5-star reads, deciding what to put on this bracket, because there's only 8 spots here, there's not even one per month. It's interesting that 2 memoirs have now been the ones that I have felt confident enough to put on here. And then that is January. So back here to August, currently reading Emma. Currently reading How to Take Smart Notes. Will definitively be done with Emma and Northanger Abbey by the end of August. We'll see if I get to any of these novellas. Oh, I am reading Spindle Splintered. Hang on, let me write that in. And break that spell of my very dry physical book haul. And that's it. That is where we are at with reading. You know, it started off a really bang up year, and then times got tough, and mental health's been difficult. And so, you know, I read something very specific to that to see if I could kind of snap myself out of it. Also had to change in some medications to see if that will help as well. And we're going to see if I can get back on the reading train for August and September and do a little bit more away from the phone, away from the television screen, away from the devices, and just get back to sitting in a chair reading a really great book. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of Murders in the Rue Morgue. So yeah, let me know if you've already read Pit and Pendulum. If you like these reading videos, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.